Well, Shabbat Shalom. I just want to welcome everybody to the Sabbath Day conference call. This is Barbara. I'm serving as your host today. And today we're having a round table of everybody that's been here at the Spring Feast. James is going to start out. Okay, all right. That's the only mic I have.
Well, I'll just talk a little bit first about this week. I know my wife and I, for pretty much for the last year, we've had very little fellowship, if any, and other than, feast times and just coming here and being around, about 20 other people that, love Yah, love Yeshua and want to obey His commandments, and just the conversation has been just very uplifting. I think everyone who's been here is going to be leaving. Just there, we've been uplifted, and we're still going to continue on until next feast. And I'm so blessed to have met everyone, getting to know Barbara. I've always heard her voice on the conference call. She's actually sweeter in person than even though she's so sweet online. But she's very hospitable, and we're just really grateful we took the trek out here from Texas, and all the wonderful teachings we've had. We've learned so much, and that just brings us closer to Elohim, to keep His statutes, and it's reminded me so much about how I need to improve in my walk in my life and not worry so much about what other people are doing in their lives, close to me or far from me. There's so much I need to work on with myself. And so that's been this week, and it's been so simple. Every night we just go by the campfire after a day of teachings and good food, and it's simple. That's, I think, how Yah designed it, entertaining. It's just, we don't need to go on TV and all the other things that we do to pass time. The campfires and just us talking has been the absolute best. And all of it, even just the mornings together. I don't know. There hasn't really been a down point in this feast time. We got to go to the beach one time, and that was very nice too. So, as far as how I came to Lunar Sabbath, if you want to talk.
Yeah, how did you find out about the Lunar Sabbath, and how did that happen?
I've heard about it before, and I've always questioned it at first because I wasn't sure, with the fourth commandment. I was thinking the 7-day continuous cycle based off of that, and that was my stumbling block. And also some people that had told me about the Lunar Sabbath also said that scripture was changed, and that never sat right with me, trying to change scripture to fit your doctrine. But I found that you don't have to change the scriptures at all. It says there perfectly. It's testing your heart to see if you really want to be obedient or not. That's why the scriptures is written the way that it's written, which makes it more beautiful, because it's not just so plain, clear cut. It's written because Yah, Jacob, one of the teachers here today, he said, what does Yah ultimately want? He wants a family. So how does he, his family are people that love him and seek after him. And so that's why his word is the way it is, to test the fruit of each of us, to see if we're really for him or not. So it was about a year ago. I was just doing a study on the year calendar. I heard the 364-day year, the 365. I was like, how did it change? And I never even heard 360 before, but I came across this article. It might have been by Troy Miller. Is that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
It does. Okay. I think I came across his website, and he was talking about it. And I was sitting, it was a Saturday Sabbath. I was sitting on my couch, and I was reading it. And then I said to my wife, yeah, I think it's from him. Oh. I said to my wife, I was like, I think we're doing the Sabbath wrong. I think it is the Lunar Sabbath. And she's like, really? And she wasn't opposed to me, and it was great because we actually were just she was really open, and we were doing a study together. And by the end of it, we're I think it was a Saturday. It was I think we have to do another Sabbath because it's on Monday now. Or it was coming up really quickly.
It was the next day.
Yeah, it was. It could have. Yeah. so I was like going through my calendar and my work, and I was just going to rearrange everyone and get them off of my Monday so I could observe the Sabbath. And at first we were observing it according to the sliver, and then we were doing World's Last Chance, and then we got off of that, and then we were doing the time in Jerusalem when it was, and then now we're back to World's Last Chance. So I can empathize with a lot of people who are confused about the moon because we were there too, but I feel, Yah has really made it clear to us that this is his calendar. We're on the right one on this call today, that this is, in my view, I'm 100% solid. This is the Sabbath day. We're on the right day. So it's been a blessing because he has his appointed times, and he wants to meet with us, but we have to be there when he's calling us, not when we think it's good for us. So I could say more, but I don't want to be long-winded. But
it's all right. We got 2 hours.
So, it just opens the door to just so many other, like, once you're actually observing his Sabbath, then when you're really studying the Word, other things just open up to you that you've been stumbled on for so long, because I think his Spirit is fully there on those days, and it's much more fruitful.
Yeah, the gates are open.
Exactly.
Right? So what was your first Sabbath? They want to know, when was that? Was that?
I think it was in February of 2022. Yeah.
Okay, so February.
Yeah.
February of 22.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 22, and there we are. So
who wants to be next? I'm going to give you this. Okay,
yeah.
This is Amy, and this is James's wife. I got the name right. And speak up. I don't have a headset.
That's good. Okay. Hi, Shalom. So, yes, the reason I came into this was because I was reading about the 360 year too. And I asked my husband, please show me in Scripture alone why our years change. I don't understand it. And he, like you said, he just said, I think that we're on the wrong calendar, and that we need to be using the luminaries in the sky, since man can't alter that. And the Gregorian is a new calendar, and it doesn't even use nature. And it uses planetary names for the 7-day week, and it uses like Roman gods for the names of the month, and that didn't sit right. So even many years ago, I knew we were on a weird calendar, but I didn't have enough knowledge to like make the switch to the lunar Sabbath. But once we did, we noticed that we were kind of like losing friends in a way, and people were afraid of us. Yeah. And that was a weird experience because we had two best friends in the walk, and it was like they didn't even want to hear our testimony or how we arrived. So we just felt like we were being stifled and censored, and I trusted my husband to just kind of take a break from them, even though I was desperate for friends, and I honestly wanted to be in opposition to it. But now we have all these other friends we just made because we were being obedient. So I feel like this is the best feast I've ever been to. And this is like my 8th year of feasting, and it all is because I decided to trust my husband and trust his word and not my own comfort, and my friends supposedly. So if anyone is on the fence, I do believe that like this is the biggest truth right now that's being revealed in a way, and that if you go to a doctor and you're using a different calendar, you can't show up at the right appointment to see him. So how much more should we be like really esteeming this matter if it's the Most High? So he is our great physician who gives healing, and we need to meet with him weekly, monthly for the new moon, and yearly for the high feast. And we have to use the calendar in the sky and not the Roman counterfeit, because otherwise we're going to be missing his appointments. And I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I think this topic matters, and it's just nice meeting people here who are still doing Saturday Sabbath, but it's the opposite of what I encountered. They're actually open and hungry for truth like a child. And I believe when we get in that posture, we can be revealed so much wisdom. But if we think we know it all, or we just want to go with the flow of whatever the Hebrew rooters are doing, I think that's when we get in trouble. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. All right, well, who wants to be next, sir? I guess pass the computer to you.
And you sit here if you want.
Looks like Brian.
Yeah, I'll consider it.
I got it right. I can send it if it'll reach. Just so they can hear you.
No, I don't think so.
If I need to mute somebody else.
So hi everyone, my name is Brian from Western North Carolina. I drove down here. I've been keeping the Lunar Sabbath for about 3 months now. It was a kind of a journey. First, I guess I'll talk about how just incredible this week has been. This is definitely the best feast I've ever been to.
While you're talking, just go right ahead. Go ahead. I'm putting a picture up of you.
Oh, okay.
This is Brian and his story.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I'm kind of right. I guess I'll start with my journey to Lunar Sabbath, because I'll explain the picture a little better. I was following the Zadok calendar. I've been keeping the feasts for about on and off for about 6 years. I wasn't a real believer. I've been a true believer for about 3 years, or Yah's really been in my life. It's a long story, but I was always kind of frustrated with the mainstream Hillel calendar, because it's just the idea that sometimes a feast day would fall on the Sabbath and sometimes it wouldn't, or most of the time it wouldn't, but you'd end up with a feast day on the Sabbath, or you'd have a Sabbath and then a feast day. It didn't seem like Yah's order. It just didn't make sense to me, and so I eventually started researching other calendars, and I found the Zadok calendar, and started researching the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there was order and structure to it, which was really attractive to me. And on that calendar, the feast days never fall on a Sabbath, and so because of that order and how everything always lined up every year, it was more that than the scriptures, so to say. And of course, you have to have extra biblical books like Enoch and Jubilees, I believe, to really construct that calendar. And I was also reading those and researching them. But I started to struggle with mainly Jubilees. I started seeing things that seemed to contradict what we know is true, and the word that we know is true. And then also the death and resurrection timeline I didn't think was lining up on the Zadok calendar with what we read in the Gospels, and so I was really feeling like it wasn't perfect, and but I didn't know what else to do, so I stuck with it. And then one day towards the end of last year, probably Gregorian November or so, I was actually watching a channel that was pro Zadok calendar, and just like skimming through the comments, and the video had nothing to do with the calendar, and somebody made a post about world's last chance and the true Sabbath and Lunar Sabbath, and it was appealing to me. I'd kind of looked into it before, but the whole, like James said, the seven-day weekly cycle, I just couldn't get around that. So I spent, it was a Sabbath day, or it was a Saturday Sabbath day, and I pretty much spent that entire day binge watching the entire thing. Like, I just couldn't stop watching it, because it was very interesting, and it just was making so much sense. And one of the biggest problems I had with the Zadok calendar was also the moon. So it just didn't seem like the moon did anything, and it was just there. And I mean, I guess sometimes it would appear in the same spot, but it really didn't seem to do anything. And so I watched all that, but I still struggled for a few months, and going back and forth, and this with the 7-day weekly cycle. I was praying, and I've been fasting, and really just asking Yah. And one of the biggest things I was worried about is that I don't know anybody who keeps the Lunar Sabbath, and I know a lot of people that are against it. And so that went on for about 2-3 months, and then one day I was actually driving back from Florida to Western North Carolina, and I had downloaded a whole bunch of videos on both calendars and on the extra biblical books, and I was just going to listen to this stuff all day while I was driving. And this was a Friday, and a Gregorian Friday, and I drove back, listened to this all day, and was still kind of up in the air, but leaning towards the lunar Sabbath. And the next morning I woke up, and where we were, this was towards the end of January, and there was debate on whether the lunar Sabbath was on Friday or Saturday at that time. So I still felt like I felt like I was in kind of a hybrid mode at that point, like not really sure where I was. But the next day would be the new moon, which would have been on Gregorian Sunday. And so I woke up that Saturday, and I just said, I'm going to do this. I can't keep doing Saturday when I know it's going to shift. And so I made the decision that morning, and that morning I happened to get a friend request from the woman you saw in that picture, from Lindsay, if the picture's still up there.
It will be in a minute. Let's keep talking.
And she sent me a friend request. I actually already knew who she was, but we just weren't friends, so I'm not going to get too deep into the story. But I knew who she was. I accepted her friend request, and then a post popped up where she was talking about how that was her last Saturday Sabbath, and she was going to be keeping the lunar Sabbath. And my mind was blown. I just said, "What, Father?" And then she was actually posting she was commenting on a post from Amy, who you just heard from, who I knew from back in the day. I used to have a YouTube channel, and both of us had taken our channels down, but I knew who she was. And we said, well, she's keeping the lunar Sabbath too. And then I started conversing with her and Lindsay, and then Amy introduced me to her husband James, and James had been researching the 360-day calendar. And once I read what he wrote about that, everything clicked when I realized that the 360-day original year and 12 perfect 30-day months, and it all just clicked. And then immediately I had fellowship, which is just incredible. And then shortly after that, we were talking about, the four of us were talking about where are we going to go for Passover. We've got to be with like-minded believers. And then I grew up in North Florida, and so I just happened to see a North Florida Lunar Sabbath group and joined it, and because I just had to join it because I grew up in Jacksonville. And then I met Barbara, and I saw her post about the Passover here, and we got on the Lunar Sabbath call, and now here we are. It's been quite a journey.
So when was your first Sabbath?
My first Lunar Sabbath would have been the end of January, I think.
Yeah, the 23rd-ish.
Yeah, so whenever the new moon was then, I kept the new moon, and there just happened to be another group in my one town over that I found about that day that was doing a new moon celebration.
Yeah.
They keep the Lel calendar, but I still went and met with them. So it was another confirmation from Yah that I just happened to.
So it's only been 3 months.
Yeah, only 3 months. Yeah.
January 29th.
Yeah.
January 29th.
Send me a picture of. It was a perfect pass.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, and that was what was amazing is that the next Saturday, I did a bunch of work around my house, and I went to the barber shop and did a bunch of things, and I felt kind of just free from the system. It wasn't that I hated not being able to work on Saturdays, but I was just outside working, and I changed the brake pads on my truck, and it was evening. As I was about to walk in my house, I just happened to look up, and I saw that perfect first quarter moon, just as it was going from day to dusk, and it was just like another little reminder from Yah, or just confirmation from Yah. It was amazing. So I ran and grabbed my camera and came outside and took a really good picture of it and sent it to everybody, and it's been amazing. So
what happened here at camp?
And so
yesterday, even.
Yes, this photo is from yesterday.
Somebody you. I think it's Christina. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. There.
And so this photo was taken just yesterday, and that's Lindsay and I. When we met,
I was sending it to her.
We hear you, Christina.
Man, I'm leaving.
*6 to mute and *6 to unmute.
What?
You want to be next or wait?
He already said everything.
Huh?
He already said everything.
No, well, I'll just say hello. Well, wait, I have something for you to say.
Okay.
Okay, but you got to speak up because I don't have actual speakers here. Okay, this is Lindsay. She's the bride, and she is doing something here that we did at camp in the middle of the week. Just talk to just don't pay attention here.
Okay.
Hi, I am with Brian, obviously. We had a wonderful ceremony yesterday. We got betrothed, or engaged, rather. Same thing.
Yeah.
And it's been very quick, but it's been very right. We had so many reasons that were straight from Yah that we needed to be together, so that's what we're doing. We're listening to him, and the Lunar Sabbath brought us together, and it's just never felt so sure about something, so we're embracing it. So that's Passover's been amazing. We love Barbara, and we'll be coming back forever. So a lot of the things that Brian and I have in common are very natural and survival. I teach foraging and I guess food-based survival skills. And Brian's more of the hunting, survival-based skills, so we make a good team. But I did a little class this week about foraging and the biblical diet and what I think Yah wants us to eat, and we just need to be more mindful of his creation. And I'm taking back with the New Age soul, so we are teaching about his garden and his herbs and his food. Instead of worshiping the creation, we are acknowledging the creator, and it's been really fun. So we went over all the plants that are edible around this area, and we tried them. It's been a lot of fun.
And for the Passover meal, we actually went around the property and picked some bitter herbs, which was a lot of fun, and we had it with our meal.
Yeah, so we found a few bitter herbs for Passover meal, and that was really cool just to find them on our property, and it was really magical. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah.
Okay, well, all right, now, how about if we have somebody here on the call talk? It can be Christina or Ellie or Scott, somebody that was here who would like to talk for a minute, and then we'll go to somebody else in the room.
I will talk, Barbie.
Okay, Ellie, good.
Yeah, I want to say congratulations to Lindsay and Brian. I think you guys have a good match and made in heaven. So I want to say that first of all, and it's too bad you didn't do it when I was there. I would have liked to have been part of it. But anyway, it was a great Passover feast, and I've been a Lunar Sabbath keeper now probably 5, maybe going on 6 years. I met Barbie at a Passover feast about that time ago, and she gave me some information on Lunar Sabbath, and it blew me away because I was a Saturday keeper. And when I started to read this, it just really contradicted everything that I believed. And so I studied it for about 3 months, and I was keeping both Sabbaths. I was keeping the Lunar Sabbath and the Saturday Sabbath. But then it got to be to the point where it was just too much because I'm alone and I take care of 10 acres, and it seems like every week I was keeping 2 Sabbaths and sometimes 3 when new moon showed up. So it just got to be too much. So I eventually gave up the Saturday Sabbath, and that was hard because I knew a lot of people in the church, and I really liked them and fellowshiped with them. But I would say that the feast was great. Really enjoyed the talks. Really enjoyed what really stuck out to me was all the young people that were there. I think the oldest was Barbie and me and Keith.
Hey, watching any old people here.
Older Barbie.
The second one in is Ellie that's talking, for those of you that haven't seen her before.
Yeah. All the rest were younger, which was a really, I would say, an eye-opener, a blessing to see such young people coming up and learning the truth, because so many young people today are so closed-minded about everything, and there's so much of the world. So it was a huge blessing to meet, James and Amy and Kristen and, Brian and all of them. So I don't know what else to say except that I had to come home, and I'm sorry I didn't get to stay till today, folks, but I've got company coming in a day, and I've got to be at the accountant's tomorrow to sign papers for taxes. And anyway, I really miss you guys, and I just wish you all the best.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, we'll go to somebody in the room here now. Who wants to be next? Jake or?
I'll just do it.
Wait, Christina's going. Go ahead, Christina.
Hi, everybody. I really miss you all. It was really beautiful being there. And you guys can hear me properly? Yes?
There's Christina on the end. You guys.
Can you hear me properly?
We're hearing you, but I can hear that.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I've been doing the feast for many years, but I was always very interested in the calendar, and the calendar actually literally tortured me at night, not knowing when I was leaving. It was the real time, how we're going to meet the Father if we're not reading the right calendar. And at some point, His Spirit came onto me and really imprinted on me that I really needed to understand, and we all needed to understand the calendar, and this was super important. If not, we were not able to talk to Him and prophesy. He told me, you won't be able to prophesy. You need to know these things. So more I got obsessed with the calendar, and living there in the ministry with Walter, we were for many, many years keeping this calendar, but I wasn't completely convicted until I totally understand that the Bible is really written in the skies and in nature, and it's just really simple. It's really organically in nature, and I don't need to complicate with all the other things that they were made by men. You know, all these other theologies and calendars are made by men. And when I understood that, it just brought a complete peace and a conviction of doing the new moons also every month, and my life started getting better. And this weekend, you guys gave me so much hope to see young people, you know, younger people than me, because I still consider myself young, but younger, that really are looking for the truth and really are like committing to study the truth and the scriptures for yourself. And it's so nice to see that you have the courage to do it and the commitment. And I think that's why the Father gave this wonderful testimony, that, you know, they met through the calendar in the heavens because it was His appointed time. He can work through us if we're connecting in time and space with Him, if we're really connected. So I thought that was an amazing testimony that they got married this way, and I'm really enjoying and hope everybody gets to study this important topic. Shabbat Shalom to all. So,
We can't hear you, Barbie.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you, Rafaela. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Screen. Okay. Okay, go ahead. If I mute it here, then I can't get back. Okay, go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
So I think you guys recognize me from talking maybe a few times here or there for the last couple of years on the conference call.
Yeah, where are you sitting?
Are you going to show them the picture?
I'm trying to show a picture. You keep talking.
So we had an enjoyable time this feast. It's my first time coming down here for Passover, and being able to go in the ocean and go swimming in the springs is an important thing to me, because, you know, it's time that you can just kind of spend out in nature and with, you know, with the family, with the children, and relaxing and enjoying the time of the feast.
Keep talking. Don't look at this stuff.
But it's also a very
This is Tim here. Whoops, I can't see it yet.
It's also
okay,
a very important time. I barely made it. My car had broken down, so I almost wasn't gonna be able to come. But thankfully, I was able to get a car and then go borrow another car from Jake here and drive down. And I learned a lot of interesting things. I really enjoy Enoch and Keith's classes, and if you want to call him a rabbi, Jacob here, as opposed to Russian Jake, had an interesting class that I really enjoyed about the war in heaven. Do you want me to share something other than just...
Yeah, I want. You mentioned something about visiting Adventist churches and sharing the faith. So, would you tell about one of those experiences?
So, I don't know. Did Jake and I ever tell you guys about when we were in the truck together and visited that church? Did he share that?
Just tell us. Don't matter. We haven't heard it on a conference call. So.
Should I share it?
Yeah.
So, we were at an Adventist church, and as usual, when we would visit churches, they would either talk about the law or talk about the Sabbath. And here they were talking about that, and I was bringing up the Lunar Sabbath a little bit, and but then we just listened to their listened to the pastor's service. And then afterwards, Jake had told me when he was standing there with the with the pastor, there was a woman who showed up, and she was Catholic, and she had said that God had told her to come to church that day. But then she was also telling the pastor about the Lunar Sabbath, that we should be following with the moon.
So she's a Catholic lady. She went to an Adventist church.
Yeah.
And talking to the pastor about going the Sabbath by the moon.
And this was after, and Jake told me this after we had already had lunch with most of the people from the church and had some good conversations with them, and he had shared it with them. Then he came back and told me this afterwards, that this happened. And I thought it was like kind of interesting. It's like a miracle that and this would kind of happen a lot. We would show up to churches when we were in the truck together. This was last year, right? It was like towards the winter. And we'd show up to churches and we would have really interesting conversations.
That's good.
With people.
See, a lot of people don't realize that
they can hear you.
When we are parked, we choose a church to go to, and it could be Sunday keeping churches or Adventist churches. And everywhere we went, this topic was always following us.
Wow.
It's either the pastor would preach on the law, a Sunday pastor, or a Seventh-day Adventist pastor would preach about the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that everywhere we went, and Timothy was the one that pointed out, Jacob, don't you get a notion that this topic is always following us? Because every church that we went to, it's always the same thing over and over and over. And so that day I was so surprised how this lady, I was just standing there across the pastor because I wanted to greet him, but I didn't want to intervene because there's so many people coming to shake his hand. And so this lady comes up and she says, Pastor, but you're not supposed to keep the Sabbath. The Sabbath is wrong on Saturday. And I couldn't, at first I was like, wait, what was she trying to say? And then she said, the Sabbath should be kept according to the moon. And she said, I am a Catholic lady. Apparently someone invited her. She's the first time visiting this church. Wow. And she's telling the Adventist pastor that he should be keeping the Sabbath according to the moon.
So the Holy Spirit is revealing this to his true followers to say, come out of her, my people. And right, somebody that would never go to an Adventist church. That's so amazing, Jay.
That experience, when I witnessed that, it just struck me. The idea that a Catholic lady comes up to the pastor and telling her that we should be keeping the Sabbath based on the cycles of the moon.
Yeah, right.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hear from somebody else that was here.
What did the pastor say?
He was just dumbstruck. He didn't try to, because everything is too new for him, and he's looking at this lady like she's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I said, wait, Pastor, I know exactly what she's talking about. After you greet everyone, because they also invited us to potluck, I said, I will explain. And then I had an opportunity to share with him. I left my phone number in the registry, and I told him, if you have any questions, contact. I gave one of the Barb's cards to him. I don't know if he ever contacted what's going on, but it's...
So you're going all over the country, truck driving and planting the seed. And all of you can make up a card about the Sabbath with our website or our YouTube channel and spread it all out. The business cards don't cost more than $50 to have a few hundred printed up, and you can just spread the message everywhere. So.
Yep.
Okay, well, how about, I think Scott is here, and also Jonathan. So would one of you want to say something about your experience at the feast, or how did you find the Lunar Sabbath? We'd like to know that.
I'd like to speak on the feast if I could.
Yes, please. This is
Scott. How y'all doing? I miss y'all too. We had a great time over there, and I want to put kudos out to Miss Barbara. You really did a fantastic job, especially with nobody went hungry. Everybody had food, and it was a pleasure to work side by side with you. And wish I could have stayed longer. I really do. I got to meet some very interesting people, heard a lot of different testimonies, and wrote down a lot of them, actually. And it was quite surprising to me, a lot of the New Age Pentecostal testimonies I heard who have converted, which was a wonderful thing. And if you starved, you didn't listen to Lindsay's seminar. I just wanted to throw that kind of a joke in there. But she did a wonderful job. And meeting with Enoch, to me, was a divine appointment, as they call it. Him and I got to walk side by side and spend some time together, and speaking of things that really mattered to me spiritually. So I'm thankful for meeting him. And his father, I know, didn't feel well, and I was praying for them, as we all were. And, the whole experience of the Cedar and the whole food experience to me is really what I really enjoyed, because, being a chef, it's just, and with Lindsay and her food and things like that, speaking on that. And most of all, the spiritual structure that was there at the camp, I'll just call it a camp, was wonderful between everybody, to be with so many like-minded people. There was so much love in that air, and it was beautiful. And I just want to thank everybody for it. And that's it. I'm not going to continue.
Shalom, everyone. I guess Barbara's on mute.
Go right ahead.
Mike here from Canada.
Yeah, well, we're having, you may have joined us later, we're going around the circle with everybody that was here at Passover. Sorry, I'm on the wrong feast. I'm already planning for Sukkot. You're all invited to Michigan, September 29th, October 6th. But, okay, Mike, we'll just hold you for later. We're talking to people that were here at this feast or are here still.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
I thought it was an amazing Passover, and Scott was just talking about divine appointments. I think the whole thing was a divine appointment for us all. And as you all witnessed, the amazing anomaly where not one but two people that I knew from another place 5,000 miles away ends up on the same day, same feast, in the same place. It was just remarkable. And I was talking to Enoch's dad about that just briefly. He's a mathematician. And the probability of that is just so astronomical that it is a divine appointment. Y'all brought us all together. I believe we're all the same tribe. I enjoyed the feast immensely, and it was such a blessing, especially the fireside chats. I agree with James on that. That was also a highlight. There was even great debate, not contentious debate, but intellectual debate, and people listened, and there was no fighting and no division, and I thought it was beautiful. I've never been in one place with so many intelligent people that were on the same page, or almost on the same page, because there was, maybe one or two that were not particularly on the same page, but that's okay. Maybe seeds were planted, maybe not, but I believe it was a divine appointment. Y'all brought us together. It was a very blessed time. I felt honored to be there amongst you guys, and it was an honor to meet every single one of you. Miss Barbara is a phenomenal host, and she did a great job for such a small little lady to put all that together, to take care of so many people, was just a blessing to see that, and hopefully we can do it again at Sukkot. We'll see. Now, as far as the lunars.
Yes, I was trying to get on here. I'm on mute. How did you find out about the lunar calendar?
I've been on it for several years, about going on 8 years now. And it was Exodus 16. I saw the layout there, and then of course coming across Troy Miller, and then World's Last Chance, and there was all these other confirmations, and of course you were another confirmation, and so it's amazing to see how this has grown and how many people are seeing this, and it's not complicated. It's actually pretty precise and mathematical. You can see the pattern laid out right there in Exodus 16. They were on that pattern for 40 years in the desert, and that's the way it was. Yahuwah set that pattern, and it is determined by the moon. The word is true. And if we go outside the Bible to try to, vet a calendar, and I'm talking about the Zadok, and they like to say it was in Qumran and Enoch and this and that. If it's outside the Bible and it contradicts the word, we can't use it. That's how I see it. Yeah. So, thanks for letting me talk.
Okay, so let's see.
Barbie, who was talking?
Ellie. Go ahead, Ellie.
No, I just wanted to ask who was talking.
Jonathan.
Who was talking? Oh, Jonathan. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that was Jonathan. So, all right. Well, I think the ones that are on the call, those are all that had to leave maybe a day or two early, and it was sad to say goodbye. But, so, Jake, how did you find out about Lunar Sabbath?
Well, originally, I come from a Baptist family.
Gabriel.
Very religious, large family, and when I started reading the Bible on my own, that's when I realized that you should be keeping the law, and you should be keeping the Sabbath because it's one of His commandments, and I saw the big picture that it's either all or none. So I went out.
I hear echo. I hear your
No,
thing
it's just
going.
because he can hear it on his.
Okay, let's plug in me. Sorry.
I am going to.
Just a minute. I didn't mean to say. Yeah, I didn't mean
I'm going to lower.
Okay, most of you might not remember Jake's voice because he's only talked on the call once before. So he's been on the call for a decade now. Go ahead, keep talking. I'm trying to get a picture of you.
And so I went out, started proclaiming.
This is Jake here in the center that's talking from Russia. Go ahead.
Proclaiming that everybody, my family, that they should be keeping the Sabbath. Well, that didn't really do well because they would go into opposition and they would go into offensive, and it didn't really play out well. Anyways, I was studying on my own, and I discovered all these truths, most of the truth on my own. Then I went and joined a Seventh-day Adventist church, and I was a member since 2006 until 2012. And one day I came across, on the World's Last Chance, across that the Sabbath is not on Sunday, nor it's on Saturday, and that kind of struck me. First, when I watched some videos and read some articles, I thought, wow, the devil is so devious, so smart. The way he presents and the way he creates confusion. So I made a plan to basically try to find out some kind of a loophole to figure out that this was a lie. And for many years, I did not accept a lunar Sabbath. I studied here and there. When I had business, I was really busy at that time, but it took me a while to actually come across the truth, the pure truth. But what did for me was the fact that I did all the studies, but when I finally did the study of 3 months in a row, that's what did it. Because I started realizing that, and the way I did the study was I put the calendar right on the left side, and I started reading through some verses, and I started seeing that every time Israelites was commanded to stop, it was all the dates are mentioned. And so I realized something happened in my brain, said, you can't fight this anymore. It's either you have to accept it, or you just continue on, with you as usual. So it took me about approximately anywhere from 3 to 4 years to actually change, because I was busy at the same time. I couldn't believe that this was. You see, my difficulty was, for all these years I've been proclaiming that the Saturday was the Sabbath to all my family. And it was difficult for me to accept, because now everybody in my family, they all consider me to be a black sheep in the family. Yeah. The crazy one. Yeah. Comes up with all these ideas that we should be keeping the law, and they kept arguing, we are not under the law, we are under grace of Jesus. Right. Well, anyways. And here I am now coming up to my family and saying, I was wrong. It's not the Saturday. Because I keep showing them the calendar saying, see, look, Saturday is the seventh day of the week, not the Sunday. Sunday is the Roman Catholic Church institution, and that this is their doing, changing, and I would argue look, Daniel 7:25 predicted this, that he would change times and laws. And it was difficult for me to accept the lunar Sabbath because, come on, now they finally have a proof that I'm crazy. Literally, because now I'm coming up with this idea that the Sabbath is not on Saturday or Sunday. It's somehow is corresponding to the cycles of the moon. So it took me a while, but I finally saw it. I realized that was the truth, and ever since I started keeping it.
And can I just interject there, since Jacob is talking, because he's one of the other guys that I've run into from another place. He and I bonded on this thing, the Lunar Sabbath. When I first met him, I was, he and his brothers took care of me in a hostel and looked out for me and fed me. And when Jacob found out that, because I took the Sabbath and I was keeping the Sabbath, and he was doing it on that same day, and his brother Daniel says, "Wait a minute, you're keeping a Sabbath today?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Jacob's on the Sabbath today." And it wasn't Saturday. It was like, in the middle of the week or something. And so we bonded on that. And I lost contact with him and then run into him at this feast. And I think like I said, the divine appointments, bringing people together for a reason. And I don't think you're crazy, brother. And I think it was another witness for your family, your brother, because I remember him making fun of you when we were talking about it and kind of laughing and stuff. But I think it brought credibility to what you saw. And it probably took a lot of courage to just kind of admit you were wrong and, declare this. But, yeah, it's amazing that we bonded on this.
Okay, Jay, go ahead. And then.
So many years, I'm already used to everybody making fun. At some point, I already said to myself, I don't care. Whatever you think of me, I don't care. Okay. I'll just have to focus to do whatever I have to do.
Okay. Go ahead, James.
I was just, when you were speaking about telling everyone about the Saturday Sabbath, I was reminded of a time in my life when it never felt right for me. Every time I was telling friends and family, like, I can't do it. On Saturday's the Sabbath. Saturday's the Sabbath. I knew Saturday was not a good, it's not a good word,
Yeah,
This is Saturn's day, and it reminds me of the verse in Hosea 2:17, "For I will take away the names of Balaam out of your mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name." And, but when you come to the Lunar Sabbath, you're no longer speaking the names of Baal as your Sabbath day of your day of Sabbath.
Yeah, when I was keeping Saturday Sabbath, I would never say Saturday because I knew it was a bad word.
Yeah.
It was for Saturn.
Yeah.
But when you grew up, tell them a little bit. How come you were on Saturday?
Growing up, my mom and my dad had a division. My mom was studying scriptures, and while my dad was at work, and then she ultimately came to realizing that the Torah has not been done away with, and my dad was still in Christianity. So that caused a lot of division, ultimately leading to their divorce. And so growing up, my dad got full custody of us, but when I was with my mom, to the best of her ability, she still struggled sometimes, holding that foundation of observing the Saturdays. She didn't make much money, and so that was also confusing growing up.
Was she Adventist or Jewish?
No.
Or?
Yeah, my grandfather was Jewish, and after he died, she really was getting into understanding her Jewish roots. So that's that's kind of how that started.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So part of the time I was with my dad, and going to Baptist church and doing that, and the world accepts that. And then my mom, this is back in the early 90s, I thought that she was the only person in the world that believed what she believed. So that's why every time I come to these feasts and I see so many other like-minded people, it still blows my mind if I really sit back and think about it. Because I remember when I was 10 years old, I couldn't imagine that there's even anyone that thinks even remotely close to my mom, you know. But praise his name.
Yeah, Mom was right after all.
Yeah, Mom was right after all. That's right. I mean.
I was wondering, Scott, how did you come to the Lunar Sabbath out there on the conference call there? Jeff Scott was here with us. He had to leave a little bit early because there was something happened. He had to go cover at work, so we missed him. We missed everybody that was here. They had to leave a couple of days early, but we still have a group of 12, from about 29 down to 12 now, but it's been wonderful. How did you find out about the Lunar Sabbath, Scott? Are you able to tell about it a little bit? Maybe he had to leave.
Maybe he left.
Maybe he had to go. Okay. All right, well.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes. Who is this?
Who is this? You don't recognize my voice, Barbara?
It's Michael. Yay, Michael, we missed you so much. Go ahead, Mike. Of course I knew who it was. I was going, is that Michael?
Well, I've been listening to the entire conference call today. I have you on my computer. And can
you talk a little louder or closer to your phone without the speaker?
Yes, I'll do it. Is this better? Is this better?
A little bit.
Is this better?
Yes, a little bit.
That's about the best it's going to be because I'm looking at you through a tablet, and it's very close to my face at this point. And so, anyway, I just wanted to say that just today, I mean, I've been with you every day of this feast. Today is the last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and I have thought of you all. Well, not the ones that I haven't met yet, but the ones that I know. I've thought of you every day since Passover. And I truly miss not being there. However, I believe in Romans 8:28, which simply says, all things work together for them that love him. And my absence was necessary. As a matter of fact, the day after Passover evening, my wife got sick. I had to be here. I had to take her in to see a doctor. So, I mean, I wasn't there, but I have been blessed. And for those of you who don't know me, who have never heard me, I've been observing, to the best of my ability, the Lunar Sabbath for about 8 years now, and have gone back and forth on some issues, but I'm back where I started. And I must say, the World's Last Chance was actually the first real clear teaching that I had on it. I think I was just scrolling. I've always been a student of Scripture, and I've always been wondering about certain things. And when I started to realize the pagan origins of the calendar, the Gregorian calendar, and the pagan realities of the days of the week, and when I started to investigate Saturn's Day, it started to just really shake me, because I realized that there's something wrong here. And then I did research regarding the fact that there is no mention of an uninterrupted, continual weekly cycle of 7 days. It doesn't exist in Scripture. It doesn't. You cannot find evidence for a continual weekly cycle of 7 day weeks. It doesn't. And one of the brothers before was speaking about how he was studying the 3 months, the 3-month study. That's something also from World's Last Chance that affected me. And I said, wow, this is just amazing. And even from many years ago, I wondered why the time prophecies of in Scripture, rendered by the early Seventh-day Adventists and William Miller and all those people, why did they consider a year having 360 days? I wondered about that, because that was a question mark in my mind for the past 30 years. And then when I came to the very first Passover invitation, I wasn't invited to be a speaker or anything. I just came because it was at your house. It was at your place, Barbara. I don't know if you remember. It was a number of years ago. And
of course, I remember your first time here, and every time you've been here.
Yes. Well, I'm just saying that was when the idea of the 360-day original calendation, 12 months of 360 days each, that became a very, very strong reality in my mind. And ever since then, I can never go back to observing something that has been invented by man. Worst of all, devised by Jesuit priests and popes. I just can't do it. I was born and raised a Catholic, and when I was a young guy, when I was a teenager, I saw the solemnity and how solemn their services were, and I was even thinking of becoming a Catholic priest, when I was about 15 or 16 years old. But fortunately, that never happened. And I just became aware, and I'm just rejoicing to hear the testimonies today. Again, as someone had mentioned, the young people, some of the younger people who have received this light and are walking in it, it is marvelous for me to hear. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but it's hard to find people to talk to. You can't walk into a Seventh-day Adventist church and start talking about this stuff. They look at you and they don't want to talk. Either that or it's just very strange. Yet I spent many years as a Seventh-day Adventist. I attended 2 of their seminaries for a while, studying to become a pastor, a minister. I did become ordained as a minister, as a pastor, by Seventh-day Adventists. But I have long left what they hold to. The Saturday Sabbath, for one thing, the humanity of Messiah. I mean, there are a number of issues that I cannot agree with that are commonly taught within the Seventh-day Adventist structure. So I haven't been one for many years, about 12 years now. I still see them. They still see me. But they all think that I've kind of lost it or something. But in any event, I'm planning still to attend future events. Sukkot, maybe I can make that one, Barbara. I don't know. We'll see. We got a lot of time between now and then, and if time should last, we don't know. I mean, the way the world is looking right now, we don't know when things are going to really start to wind down, and we're going to become limited as far as traveling, etc. But I just missed you all. I missed the ones that know me, that are listening to me now. I missed you all. I truly did, very much. And just today, to hear the voices and to have the chance to be a part of this final meeting, on this last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, I'm happy and very blessed to be among you. So that's all I'll say for now. Oh, yeah, that's me. Barbara just put up a
thank you, Michael. For those of you that are on the internet, I put a picture up of Michael, and he has on Facebook he does a ministry on Facebook too. So, and a lot of his he's done a lot of videos that are on the YouTube channel and on the website. In fact,
I would like to say one last thing, and I must confess, I'm not confessing to you as priests, but I'm confessing to you as brothers and sisters who love the Most High, and I'm sure that you love me too, or I wouldn't share this, but I have been plagued with circumstances here at my house regarding my animals. I lost 4 of my close. They're friends to me. They're like children. I mean, all of my children are grown, so my dogs are my children. Now I lost 4 of them. I buried one yesterday. And it's been painful. It's been very painful. But I just want you to know that listening to your voices today and hearing the confirmation of truth that I have believed for a long time, hearing it coming from you, all of you, has been a great, very encouraging experience to me. I'm very happy. And I just want you to know, thank you, Barbara, for giving me a chance to express myself to those who are still there. I truly missed Enoch. I was hoping to meet his father too, but I'll get back in touch with him. And I just wanted to ask too, were the messages recorded that were presented? Because I would like to take a look at them if they're going to be on YouTube or something. Were they recorded?
Enoch recorded all of them.
Okay, great. Well, then I need to get that list. Well, I'll contact Enoch and say I need the list, and he'll send it to me. All right, well, that's all I have to say. I thank you all. I am blessed. I am extremely baruched. I am happy to at least be a part of you to this extent, expressing myself. I'm a gospel presenter. A lot of people don't even know what the gospel is. If you ask somebody, yesterday I was at a music store, and this pastor from this Sunday church came in, and I asked him, I said, what is the gospel? And he looked at me. He said, you're the second person who asked me that question in 2 days. And his answer was sort of right, but still not right. You know, most of the sermons that you hear from the churches, including the Seventh-day Adventist Church, are messages of advice, good advice, or do this and you'll be okay, or don't do that or you'll be condemned. No, that's not the gospel. The gospel is good news, period. It's not something that we can earn or merit. It is something that was given to us as a free gift through the Son of the Most High, Yahushua HaMashiach. It was a gift given through him. That is what the gospel is, period. So, anyway, I was hoping to share some of those messages. I mean, my emphasis on that point. Maybe next year. Who knows?
When Michael called and said he wasn't coming, and he said all these things, and I said, well, we got to praise Yah. And so we said, praise Yah from whom? And he started singing. Of course, Michael has an opera voice. But he heard...
Not really. But, no, I'm known as a singer. I'm known as a musician and as a singer. I was going to bring I have a keyboard here. I'm sitting right in front of it now that I purchased, really. I purchased it on credit. It's a $1,000 keyboard. Sounds like a grand piano. It has bells and whistles on it. I can make recordings with it to sing with, or I can produce beautiful, beautiful music with it. In any event, I was going to bring that on this trip, but it fell through.
We praised Yah, and you just said why. You had to stay. You were concerned about your wife, and you did need to be there. So we're going to move right along. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for the chance to speak.
I wanted to ask, so we miss you so much, and most of these people haven't even met you. But I wanted to ask Brian too.
James.
Brian did a teaching too, but I have James here, and he has some information for you. And why did you get this information? Why were you studying the year?
Well, it's just, if Yah's creation from the beginning, he made it perfect. Yeah, he made it perfectly, right? He made it, when someone pointed out that a circle has 360 degrees, I was like, why would he make it any different than that, right? Everything's in precise and precision. So that kind of took me on that study. The verses in Genesis were pointed out to me about the 30-day months, 5 consecutive months of Noah's Ark. So that declared to me that for sure the year was 360. And what's interesting in Hebrew, the year means Hashanah. And in Hebrew, every letter is assigned a numerical value. And then actually Hashanah adds up to 360. So that was kind of the first thing that got me thinking about that. And then obviously, everyone points to the verse in Kings about the sundial of Ahaz turning back 10 degrees. Well, on a sundial, it measures the 12 hours of light in a day. When the sun sets, it's only keeping track of the daylight hours. Well, 12 degrees on a sundial, 10 degrees on a sundial is equivalent to 20 minutes. And so if 20 minutes were added to each day over the course of a year, I think that would be like 7,200 minutes. And if you divide that up by how many hours, it's 120 hours. And then that's 5 days were added. Now that's so that it goes from 360 to 365. Well, we know that a year is 365.2424, something along those lines. So it's like, well, it's only 12. The sun is only up for 12 hours during the equinoxes, the fall and the spring equinoxes. So actually, I was talking to Brian about this, and so about 15 days after the first of the year, which is around Passover, and 15 days prior to Yom Teruah, when the day length is 12 hours and 34 minutes, and I think in 58 seconds, if you take 10 degrees of that on the sundial, then that gives you the 365.24 days. So that's where my current understanding is. We're kind of leaning to. Now, I still, Barbara kind of threw me on the spot here. I'm not quite ready to just put this all out there, because I've also been considering how the long day with Joshua has incorporated into that. So my information now may change, the longer I do this study. But it's interesting. And so if it was changed around the first of the year, around Passover, then that the sun would have been perfectly for it to change to where it is at now, or if it would have been closer to the fall feast. Yeah. So that was, and that's also what's interesting is, Brian pointed out to me is that, he's always confused how you would see the moon during the day, because in Yah's original design, the moon ruled the night. So if that be the case, if it's a 30-day cycle, if the moon were to go through its phases, the moon is actually the light. It gives off light. It's not a reflector from the sun. It's self-illuminating. It's the lesser light. It's not the lesser reflector. It's the lesser light. And so when the sun would set, what I believe how his design looked like is that Yah's design, when the sun would set, the moon would rise right after sunset every day for 30 days, and it would go through its phases perfectly. And then the one day where it would rise and you don't see a moon, in between those 2 days is your 2 new moon day. And then when you see the sighting after sunset the next day is when you would know you begin your work week. So that's I believe how it would work on a 30-day cycle. So that's why it would be so clear to point out, okay, this is Shabbat, this is, the Sabbath. You would, every time you see the moon, because it would line up perfectly with the full moon on the 15th, the quarter phases on the 8th and the 22nd, and then you wouldn't see the moon during the new moon, but you would see the last sighting of it after sunset on the 29th. And if you had a 30-day month, so a lot of the Enoch people, they're saying it's aligned with the spring equinox. Well, I believe in the beginning, the first new moon of the year fell exactly on the spring equinox, and then the fourth new moon of the year fell exactly on the summer solstice, and then the seventh new moon of the year, when we celebrate Yom Teruah, that would fall exactly on the fall equinox, and then the 10th new moon of the year would fall in the winter solstice. And but a matter is established by 2 or 3 witnesses, so the sun and the moon and the stars would all be in unison. It's not just people accuse lunar, solar Sabbath keepers as being moon only, even though it says in the name lunar solar. But there's this movement with the Enoch calendar it's just a solar only. I don't even like the phrase Enoch calendar, because I don't believe Enoch stood for that at all. He didn't. They're just using his name to establish it, but it's a solar only calendar. That would be more accurate what they should be calling it, a solar only calendar.
Yeah, actually, something I want to say earlier when you mentioned the Jubilee, the Shemitah cycle, and how it's interrupted by the Jubilee. It just made me kind of think for a second that we've been talking about the 360-day calendar, being perfect with the moon starting on the spring equinox, and I kind of thought for a second, wow, if that's how the sun and the moon move through the sky and perfectly like that. Of course, obviously there's a creator, but if that's what all the cultures observed, why would it even need to be written in Scripture? Because see, if it just did that every month, that would explain why it's not in the Torah, because it's just what it does. That there's no questioning, what day of the week it is, or when you're looking at the moon and you see this every night, the sky is telling you. And so that's kind of occurred to me. That's probably why we don't have it spelled out for us.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing the study. If Barbara likes what I said, then I'd be open to doing a presentation with the graphics to show the numbers. I'm a visual learner myself.
Me too.
So if I'm just hearing someone talk, I don't know how much I could grasp it, but I would like to put together a presentation, even though I'm not technologically savvy at all. It would give me some time, and then I'd love to put that to do it one time.
Yeah, you can just read it. If you have something, you can read it.
Yeah.
Now, Jonathan, I know you're probably still here. I wanted to say to everybody, we had a guest come here and speak that is from the Adventist church here next door. He had a different view on creation. But he is surrounded by all these lunar Sabbath people here, and he's straight out of the church and never keeps feasts or anything. So after he did his talk about Genesis 1 and 2, then somebody said, well, do you want to know what we believe? And so then he was kind of stuck with everybody here talking and giving him, Tim did that. Well, do you want to know what we believe? And then he was cornered, he couldn't get out of here. But Jonathan, you want to, does somebody have something to say? Jonathan, would you tell us what he was saying and how you were rebutting his view?
Right. So, and I didn't mean to make him uncomfortable, but he sure seemed uncomfortable, didn't he?
Yes. He's very confident. I mean, he's written a Bible concordance. He's rewriting the Bible. I mean, this guy's got a brain, I guess. So, and he's very good at teaching.
Yeah, I noticed when you confronted him about this, continuous 7-day cycle, and because I I said, so you think that Shabbat is Saturday, right? And so is this what you believe that Yeshua was on? Yada yada yada. And he said yes, but yet he can't show it. He cannot show it with scriptures, but he's very confident. He's very confident in that, and he seemed to be. He was changed the subject a few times. I did notice that he tried to go from that conversation to angels partaking of the Passover lamb and stuff like that, and kind of deflecting. So I stood there, just kind of let him, do his thing and speak, and I didn't want to dominate. But then, he said something about the, things being done away with, and that's when I said, would you agree that he's the same yesterday, today, forever? And he said he never changes. These are my feasts for all your generations forever, yada, 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 and went through all of that. And he seemed, kind of stumped at that and wanted to deflect it to, it was, that was the old covenant for the Jews, and, new covenant, but nothing solid. It seemed like he was unprepared to answer for what he believed. He was very confident in what he believed, but he just couldn't defend it well. And when you show him that there is clearly a pattern in Exodus 16 that lays it out, and it's at 8:15, 22, 29, and they were on that for 40 years, and it's clear it's connected to the moon and to the agriculture. And so they didn't get that from Babylon. That's another argument I hear from some of these that are on a continuous 7-day cycle that, the moon observations from Babylon. No, it's not from Babylon. Actually, Daniel took the information to Babylon, but he didn't learn it there. It was already established in something that he understood very well. So that doesn't fly. I hope we planted seeds and didn't make him feel cornered. And, I kind of joked around and said, I'm sure he laid in his bed that night and thought about everything that he heard and probably didn't sleep well. And I really hope he goes and researches it out. And that's what really happens, especially to someone who's a scholar or a researcher, and you kind of get them in a place where they can't answer something. That don't bother them, and they'll have to answer it. And that kind of happened to me, and I know a few other people. And what happened is, well, you end up getting calibrated, right? The Bible calibrates; it'll get you in line and in tune. So Yeah, I don't know what other people's take was on it, but I certainly wasn't trying to be contentious or anything. But I feel very confident in this observance that we are in, and that is in line with what the Father has laid out.
Yeah, and I think his point of view mostly was he didn't keep the feast, and the feasts were done away with, and then he talked about high Sabbath and.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yes, yes.
He just focused on the feast, and all that was done away with. Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
And then the Passover done away with. Now we have the communion, and that's when I spoke up again. And I was like, wait a minute. You think Yeshua established the Eucharist? And obviously, yeah, he does. He tried to go into that thing again, how these are done away with, and it's types and shadows, and we're not going to have the Passover. Are you thinking asking, you're going to keep killing lambs for Passover and yada yada yada, and and I don't know any Hebrew that is doing that. We're all just coming in to. I'm sure there are, but for the most part, not everyone's killing lambs. They're just going and buying it. It's not like that. That's part of the ritual. We're just commanded to have that, right? We're still learning. It's not like this is a salvation thing, and so we strain at these issues like that and go around the obvious is we're supposed to be doing it. We're supposed to be keeping in all our generations, not adding to the word and saying it's done away with. I can't find anywhere it says that these are done away with, or nailed to the cross, or any of that kind of stuff.
Okay, so he kept saying high Sabbath, and that's what everybody's been taught, that 15th of the month was a high Sabbath only and not a weekly Sabbath. So what do you say about that, Jonathan?
Well, the reason they call it a high Sabbath is because it's when a feast falls on a Sabbath, and it does happen. It happens on both ends of the spectrum, at Passover time and at Sukkot time. There is a full moon on the 15th. That is a Sabbath. So it lines up with the Sabbath because it's part of it. It's keeping count with the moon. And so if you have a Passover and it's not at a full moon time, for instance, this happened with the congregation I was with was it last year or year before last, that was not on this calendar. They're on the Zadok thing, and the moon is not anything that they observe. And the moon was it was off. It was not a full moon. It was like a gibbous or something like that, or even less. So it was way off. Nothing lined up with it. And they, on their calendar, they have to intercalate to make their resurrection week fit with what they're observing. And so that should be a red flag too. And if your calendar, you have to manipulate it to get it to fit, then it's wrong. The moon does that. If you observe the moon correctly, it'll fall perfect. Yeah. No one needs to tell the clock how to do its job, right?
Right. Well, anybody here have a question? Might be someone here that can answer it, or maybe Jonathan or someone here in this room, but there may be newcomers on here today. We'll take a minute for some questions or comments about what we've been talking about.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, but you have to speak up louder, please.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay.
You need to be louder, though.
Okay, I'll try to be a little louder.
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Okay, so I've been keeping Lunar Sabbath for about a year, and I fought with it. About 2 years ago, I came in contact with the idea, and I thought it was crazy. I laid it down, walked away from it for about 10 months, and I got back into it and started doing deep study into it. listening to everything I could find on the internet, talking to everybody I could find to talk to. And about a year ago, I finally realized that it was the way to go, and I've been keeping it since. I've been wanting to put together a calendar. I've been impressed by Father to put together a calendar that does a little more than any of the calendars that I've seen so far that have been produced by the different groups out there. And in getting into that, I began to measure the time between new moons. And I discovered that from one new moon to another, the time would often vary, sometimes as much as 12 hours. And yet everybody was telling me that the average time of the new moon was like 29 and a half days or 0.53 days. But for example, one month you would have 29 days and 3 hours and 50 minutes. Then the next month it might jump to 29 days, 16 hours and 20 minutes. Then the next month it would go from 29 days, 12 hours and 8 minutes. And then the next month it would go 29 days, 13 hours and 2 minutes. And then 29 days, 8 hours and 35 minutes. And it would go backwards and forwards, never up and down for like a 6-month cycle. I could have sort of understood that, but it was bouncing back and forth. And I'm wondering, is there anybody out there that understands why the cycles of the moon seem to vary that way?
Okay, thank you, and we'll have first Brian. Have you got a comment about it? And then Jonathan, and we'll just stick with these two answers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the moon, the motion of the moon is irregular ever since the change was made with Hezekiah. I think with the fact that the sun now is off, the moon doesn't function correctly. And I mean, you could look. I mean, the sun is. I mean, my belief in this is, the sun is typically considered male, and the moon is considered female, and so it's kind of like you could look at it as the husband, the leader, is out of sync. So is the wife that's following him, and so it's not consistent like it used to be. It's not a consistent, perfect 30 days, and I think that's also. I think when Yah set when he made the change, because I believe the change was made with Hezekiah. I don't know about Joshua. I need to research that more, but I do believe the change was made with Hezekiah. I believe it was a judgment on Israel, but also the pagan nations and the whole earth. And I believe he did it to allow this chaotic universe theory to take over, and for the enemy to create. I think it was a judgment to create this chaotic world that we live in, where everything's kind of random and it's not perfect and there's no order. And Yah allowed this as a test and as a judgment, and that's why it's the way it is. That's kind of how I see it.
So I think we have to have a lot of faith, too, because it's not perfect. And some people look at it and say it's not exactly 7 days or it's not exactly 29 and a half, and that doubts and shakes them where they don't want to believe. So, Jonathan, do you have a comment or an answer?
Yeah, and I would just have used different words. I wouldn't have said that the moon's not working properly. It has definitely changed from what we know historically about it. I would call it perturbation, but it has equalized, and it is working properly in its function and what it does. It does lay out the years and the seasons with the sun. It is what farmers go by for planting and harvest and several things. Perfect example to point out, the Aviv time, we talked about this around the fire, that at that time of the year, you will see the moon in the sky like a bowl on its side. And then it would change for each month till it's standing straight up, if that makes any sense. That That's a part of the clock and how it's functioning. And it does oscillate a little bit. It has an elliptical motion, if that makes any sense. So that's going to vary from month to month. And this is why we're called to be witnesses, right? Not just the 7th month, but all months, to know how the month is going to be laid out. See, there you go. Perfect picture right there. You see that, how it's illuminated on the bottom? And this is right after sunset, at the equinox, just after sundown, this time of year, Abib. That's what the moon will look like. It's a harvest moon, you guys. It's at the barley harvest. And it's a bowl. So that's just one way of looking at the moon in its season and determining, the month. Abib, when you're looking for Abib, it's not just the barley, it's the moon, the sun, where they are, it's nature all around, but also the barley. We can't just take that. And farmers don't do that, by the way. They don't just look at the fruit. They also look at the surrounding and the observation of what's going on all around.
So is looking at the moon, is that moon worship?
No, it would be silly. That would be like, me walking through my kitchen and looking up to see what time it is an act of observation. It's not me worshiping the clock. Unless I stopped in the kitchen and got on my knees and lifted up my hands and say, "Oh, mighty clock on the wall, that's worship." Right? We don't do that. It is a clock. We observe it, and that's that. The Father's communicating with this, by the way. He's telling us. And He's the one that controls it. It can't be, manipulated by man. Well, I guess, things could be obscured. We could get chemtrailed and things like that, and that we can't see, the objects that He's given us for a clock. But they can't change it. It is what it is.
Okay. Well, we have time maybe for one more question from you out there on the conference call. And try to have it. Yes, go ahead. Is this Appa?
Yes.
Good. Yay, from Alaska. Tim is running right over here to hear you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to answer about this question. The reason why it does do that, why is it is what the brother says. It fluctuates like that. And the 29.53 days is actually the average. That's if you take the average throughout the year, that's what it averages. So that fluctuation is important to get our 29 30-day cycles. So I just wanted to share that because I didn't hear anybody say anything about the average, and that's
a great point, brother. I appreciate your following up. That's a great point.
I have one other question. There are a lot of people that go by observation of the crescent.
So the first day is going to be, or the conjunction. That's the day. That's new moon day. And then when you see that sliver the next evening, new moon is over, and that was your first day there.
The conjunction is the new moon, but it's not the new moon day. The new moon day is the day after dawn after conjunction.
Right, which means you would see that crescent that night, and no.
Right.
This past this moon that we're in right now, the conjunction started at 1. It was like 1:30 in the afternoon, 1:30 p.m. before sunset, and then our day of worship, our new moon day and our Sabbath day was based upon sunset to sunset of the following day after that new moon, like the sister just said.
So we have a lot of videos of describing when a day begins or when new moon day is, but I want Jonathan, would you just do a closing couple of minutes here, and then our closing song is the Aaronic blessing, and that's the prayer and the song.
So you just want me to talk about this 29 and 30 day month and how it's oscillating? Yeah. So if you look at the top of the 29th day month, and we go from new moon, and then day one is that evening we will see that sliver. We know that new moon is over. But if you go on down to the bottom, you're going to see something really interesting here. As it goes out and it's waning on the 28th day, and it's a really small sliver there. Now we got and that'll kind of be a key to you when this happens, when there's a 2-day new moon. Okay, so if you notice there from going from one to another, it's showing basically 2 days of darkness right there. That's a 2-day new moon, what's called a 2-day new moon. So if we didn't see the moon that first day, and then we look at it the next night, we don't see it, we absolutely know that next day is the first day. Okay? And that'll happen sometimes where you don't see the moon for 2 days. But then that next day you will see that sliver. No doubt about it. It will never be more than that. But the next month, it may just be one night that you don't see the moon. Okay? So there's definitely an oscillation that goes back. And what's really important about this, and this is what it says in Jubilees and how it's mistranslated or misunderstood what it said. If you don't observe the new moons correctly or observe the moon correctly, you'll accumulate days. You'll end up with 10 days at the end of the year, up to 10 days. And this is why, because, it's either 1 or 2 days, sometimes it's 2, and if you don't observe that observation, which is new moon, you will accumulate that 1 or 2 days every month in your count. And that's a 7-day continuous count. Okay? Now, even when you do that, if you did a 7-day continuous count and didn't observe the new moon, every 7 years you'll land up on it anyway. Your feast will start to fit. But that's what happens when you don't observe the moon. It's inconsistent. It floats all over the place. It's the same on Yahuwah's calendar every month.
Does anyone know of a scripture where it talks about in the Bible that there is 2 days for a new moon? Is there a scripture reference for that?
No, there's not, and so, but it is a fact. It's something that oh yeah, actually there is. There is. I take that back. I misspoke. This is when Jonathan is going to a feast with Saul, and you see that there was a 2-day new moon. I almost misspoke there. I apologize.
Well, the reason we know there was a 2-day new moon because there's six working days and a Sabbath, so you have 4 complete weeks, and 4 times 7 is 28. There's 2 days left. So we know that there is a day 30 where we're going to do transition, and then day 1 is new moon day. And we're going to play the Aaronic blessing here, and we'll be back next week on the conference call. So I can find my picture. So thank you, guys.
יברכך יואל וישמרך, יאר יואל פניו אליך ויחונקה, יישא יואל פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.